And I think so. Yes, let's try to get to that point of fortune. I think we all need it sort of at this moment in time. And I would also like to have a brief story to contextualize what we are going to talk about and hear from Federico today. And that's a story that I've always been very fascinated about. It's about 1700 somewhere, and it's in Australia, and it's about Captain Cook. And Captain Cook has his endeavor, which he's the Haitians at Haiti. They'd immediately attack the boat. The Maori also immediately attacked the boat, but the Aborigines did not do anything. So later on, sort of the story goes that the Aborigines were in dreamtime, and that several things happened. The most important thing of which was that they did not see the boat as a boat because it was too big for them to perceive as a boat. They thought it was an island. And as they thought it was an island, they could just simply have it pass, because what's the point of doing something when you see an island sort of pass by? You don't seem to have agency to act. You just let it pass by. It was only until Cook lowered a small boat from the Endeavour that they immediately attacked the boat, and which of course was the right thing to do at that moment. We all know what happened afterwards. But the key to me, I think, is that this is something that I feel that we're experiencing today in a particular form. And that's, to me, the big boat is technology, sort of, and all this technology, the way that technology is perceived and built. And as we are aware today, it's not about technology that's an issue or a problem. We don't have a lack of technology. We don't have a lack of technical solutions. We don't have a lack of crypto. We don't have a lack of code. We don't have a lack of any imaginary in which that is important. But what we lack is exactly where, from this technological point of view, the things that we are discussing today, and we'll discussing also in the next seminar with Beatrice Fasi on explainability on March 29, and that Federico is going to talk about today, is about participation, is exactly, these are the main issues of today. And without having some actionability, in a good way, actionability, on these issues, all the promises and solutions that we also seem to feel now and have now, even in the good things that we think is the balanced things that are happening in self-sovereign identity and disposable identities and all of that, none of that will have any impact if we don't address the issues that are now seen to be sort of islands, but actually they are the little boats. They are the translated aspects that we need to discuss. So I'm very happy today that we have Federico Bonelli here, who I've known for a long time, and we have lengthy conversations for a long time about lots of things, and whom I've always been admired and been intrigued about his sets of skills and his sets of intelligence that he's always tuning to the real. And that, to me, I think, and to all of us here, I think is extremely important. We're not porting that into some kind of near future. We're not porting that into the past. We're not porting that into some science fiction. We're not porting that in some virtual reality. We need to address what's out here when we open the front door and walk into the street. That's what we address here. We address the real. And that's what Federico is addressing. And that's what his contribution today is going to be about. So without any further ado, Federico, it's all yours.
Well, thank you very much, Rob, for your nice words. I'm very, very grateful to have the chance to present here experiences that come from very far. At least the last 8 years have been busy in trying to bring practice and theory together in various ways, and it was a great chance to be able to put all together for this speech. I will try to break it down in 3 parts because of Aristotle, of course, and the 3 parts of the performance. that are obsolete, but still it's a nice joke. And I expect your contribution in the chat. I will stop between one part and the other. Don't limit to question. Don't worry about, I'm going to share notes, presentation links, bibliographies, and everything that I use to put up this together. I will try to go fast, but don't worry, you can post me questions in the chat anytime, and I will stop to respond later on. So the title of the talk, I'm going to share the little slides that I've made, is about is how to do it. How to, not what or when, but how to. I think you will understand why in the process that I'm talking. I'm going to the broad scope, of course, is how to set up participation and effective participation in societal processes. Let's say, translated in the realm of European endeavors, it could be how to onboard all stakeholders, even those that don't know they are stakeholders. In the process of explaining this, I'm going to involve a lot of technologies, but I'm never going to speak about them. Of course, this refers to everything that we talk about in the salon, but it's seen from another perspective. I will introduce you this starting from the experience of the laboratory that is called Trasformatorio, and it's a laboratory that we created. It has a long story, but let's say the name of the laboratory is Trasformatorio because the scope was to work together and create a group of people busy understanding how art could be effective in a site-specific work. And the idea of Trasformatorio comes as a laboratory for enacting transformation. A laboratory comes from the Latin word Laboratorium, that is a place, space, and time to work into. And it's usually populated by participants and has scopes that are connected with participants. So it's a very concrete concept. Also, labor is a term that maps more or less work and has lots of different meaning in our tradition. It's not only synonymous of labor. There is the work you do on yourself, the work that you do to bridge with others, the work of the actor to possess his character's action, etc., etc., etc. Work is what you do with presence, intent, and quality. These are the three characters of work that I want to point out. And it's what the typical person that I would like you to consider, let's say, that we can call the artist, the craftsmanship in art, is busy with every day for his whole professional, non-professional life. It's really how to work with the presence, the art of being in the moment, the intent, make clear what you want to express, and the quality of what you do. These are very well defined and technical concepts defined in each context of art, but especially in my experience was with the 20th century performance, let's say in and out media, mostly connected with media, and that I refer as theater, but be careful, it's not exactly, doesn't map exactly into the theater that most of the people is used to have seen when they were at school. It's more the contemporary form of theater. I come from a background that is very complicated. You can read it then later. I've been a smanettone, a lesser form of hacker all of my life. And I studied philosophy of science mostly at the university. When I was exposed to the current methodology that are used in innovation, especially in product design, in IT, I always felt a big occasion was lost. It was in 2007, I was in the Philips Home Lab. I managed to have a collaboration, a joint development project with our little artistic group and Philips. And I saw how this methodology that was used there, even if it tried to involve as many, as early as possible, users in the process, was, let's say, ages behind what was used to engage audiences in theater. So, okay, this presentation is going to be on how to, so let's go on it. So, first of all, I would like you to look at this from the perspective of analysis. We start about talking about situations set in the open world. The open world is the open world assumption that is familiar to the sociologist, or as well the Murphy law. Anything that could happen usually does. Anything that is not foreseen usually happens. Reality is much more complex and interactive of what we can put on paper in our UX, user experience, dreams, policies, whatever. So I start always working in the open world, in the real situations, to embody the situation that I want to analyze. I found out that this is in line with the ethical, inclusive rules of engagement for regenerative and sustainable practices connected to the human-centric objectives that I was working with, and with the need that actions should be economically viable, possibly produce spin-off, and have measurable results. So the how-to has to include this: viability, economically, spin-off, richness, and measurable results. So I will start with some results of the artistic part first, of the laboratory, and then I'm going to show you how this has been applied in H2020 and CAPSI projects. Let's say by chance, I happened to be part of these projects, and I started using the methodologies that I had developed in my artistic work. I will use both examples from practice and elements of theory, because I truly believe coming from philosophy is not something you engage with when you don't know what to say, but it's a very hard, specific technical language that has a validity in very strict and very precise elements of constraints. And we should apply also this when we try to enlighten our practices using theory. I'm skeptical. I can choose which theory I need for a particular endeavor. I'm not tied up with notions of truth. Well, this I already feel a lot of insults coming from the crowd, so I'll go back on that later. So examples that are taken are taken from the live structure of what we've been doing. Well, of course, how to it's a joke, inner joke with me and Rob about learning what to do. So don't get scared. And I will start with the notion of embodiment. So please bear it with me. Let's start with a small experiment. Now, we are constructed by COVID to be in front of a monitor in our home, in a setting. I would ask you to sit straight, and please also close your eyes a moment. You should hear my voice. You can take a deep breath to unlock a little bit the lock in your chest. allow yourself to move away also from my words and stay on your breathing. When you do it, you start feel with your eyes closed what surrounds you and how the space is filled with things you know where they are, and that you know how to touch them, how they feel when you touch them. You are aware of a lot of processes that are around you, that surrounds, and that can have or not meaning to you. Now, if you let go, but let go acknowledging, it's what you do also in meditation. If you are in that practices, you start to feel everything breathing around your body, and your body is set up in this hole with my voice that talks, with the monitor that somehow closes down your perception to only one direction. Now, your body playing in the world now, here in this moment, is exactly the point of start of the participation. It's always, you start from your own body here and now, considering not the single things as pieces in a machinery, but as a flow. So here and now, you and me doesn't have anymore a dual relationship, right? There is a third element, that is this situation, is you doing it, not imagining it, you breathing in and out, surrounded and listening to my voice. So this is a minimal situation that we have created, and this is a space we can design. If we design our interface, for example, for the conference in a way that allows embodiment, we go towards a different type of design for this hybrid situation, in which our bodies cannot enact the same physical room, but enact into a connection that might or might not work, of course. So I should also avoid somehow visual metaphors, to use only body-related metaphors when I talk about participation, because the participation is always into a situation that is here and now. So don't worry, I also have a lot of slides and a little film, so don't worry, this is the only, let's say, little experiment that I wanted you to do. You can, of course, open your eyes. And I'm going to, just to underline this concept, that it's a methodological assumption that we should move from knowledge as a product of analysis, so an idea of knowledge as a machine that is constructed analytically, to participation as a form of knowledge in itself. It's a very important point, and it has a deep root in the 20th century and also the 21st century philosophy. But for now, we just take the result. We don't take the origins in our conceptual world. We just try to start from this feeling of being straight, sitting straight on the chair, breathing, and being able to connect all this in a flow that we call a situation. So when I approach analysis of situations in this way, I also immediately become aware of an enormous number of interconnected, ever-changing networks of relations. This is the complexity that you put yourself in. And we're going to see in a few minutes a very concrete example of that. as well as instruments to deal with all this complexity. This image, of course, stands for the field of complexity, and us with our little project trying to do something in it, with all our dreams trying to do something. And this is how I relate to it in the laboratory of Trasformatorio. I try to create a situation that I can design in which the little project can dialogue with the reality in all the complex form. And in this situation, I create a difference. There is an internal group of participants. There is a core team that is allowing connection with it. And there is a larger open world that will interact with us. Well, let's go directly on something very concrete. And this is one example of Trasformatorio Lab that I want to share with you. This is an example in a remote area. It's a village in Sicily. It's called Giampilieri. In 2009, they had this huge catastrophic landslide. So the landslide took the whole mountain practically to fall on the village, make a lot of damages. Well, this image for me is very important for various reasons, because we're going to see also how it's an event in 2009 and how this event has been, let's say, processed by a certain type of way of thinking that saw it as a problem and how the solution was enacted. And this, in this moment, let's say when the works were finished, we had the chance to do a Trasformatorio, 15 days in this village with 35 artists coming from all over the world. So let's see how we did and why we did it in this environment here. Giampilieri 2018. This is what I call Trasformatorio has been sketched as an intervention in various processes. And I call them T0, T1, T2, etc., accordingly to the iteration process. The first iteration starts from here. In this image, you see immediately that there is a broken alliance. The mountain that falls down and interrupted the traffic between two big provinces of Italy, killed 40 people. It was a huge catastrophe. It's the product of let's say a broken alliance. The environment there was not natural. You see, the whole mountains was constructed in little steps, little staircase, abandoned terrace. And it was farmed till the 40s, until the mechanization of agriculture led to big movement of people away from this place that could not be mechanized, and practically the mountain was abandoned. So it's a situation that is similar to industrial, when the industry goes away in the city and leaves an empty space. It's not a natural space that came down. What was the option? Well, the whole catastrophe emerged by 3 hours of rain, in which 230 millimeters of rain fell on that area. That is an exceptional event. Nevertheless, we're going to have more and more of these events in the future. The landslide interrupted many lines of communication between Catania and Messina, so the train, the road, the highway, everything was blocked. The response you can see in the right side, it's concrete. The whole mountains has been transformed into an impluvium, to a collector of rain using armored concrete. It costed, as far as the press says, 175 millions of euros. Nothing was spent for the villagers themselves. They were seen like, you need to keep the mountains from falling. Okay, there is a village in the middle. Never mind. The engineering starts first. This is the effect of this big collector in where there was the main square of the village. And of course, there was a big crisis. The population was traumatized. Lots of people died. Empty houses everywhere, and there was no economical resilience. Everybody would go somewhere else to have money. The question was how we go on, who we have become. And for the artist, of course, the first question was what to do with this collector of water. What is it? How can we change it? So this is the case of Giampilieri. And this is in the methodology of the involvement of the audience or of the stakeholders, if you want, where we are. This is time, right? And this leads to what I call information. Is the space of the narrative, is the space of the stories, is the space of how the village sees himself. And this is the space of design, right? We went in this place with 35 artists. A lot of things happened. Mostly everything, the idea of Trasformatorio is to use everything that is found in the place as material for the transformation of the artistical work. So the artists arrive without much, and they have to start with the stories, with the places, with what we find in the space. So it's a three-part co-creation process, effectively, in which there is a highly skilled artistic person that takes material that is co-owned by the place, by the people, is it the landscape, the stories of people, the people you work with, and creates this creates stories that can be told in various ways, and they appear in the narrative space, or leads to prototypes, because the scope of the artist is also to engage his own skills, and is mostly media art. So we really have elaborated since 2012 an open toolkit of things that have been designed to be able to be attached very fast and prototype fast ideas that have also a technological aspect. And this goes in the design space. You want to keep complexity at bay because you have a goal. And the goal is, in the case of the Trasformatorio, is a performance that you do at the end of the 2 weeks. So it's a performance that comprises all the showing, all the art forms that have been done, and all the art piece might have enough quality to be shown at an audience. So it's a higher quality of the usual what a designer is usually content with. Okay, what happened at the end of the Giampilieri, we have it on the website. You can choose, but there were like 40, 45 stories that linked one into the other in the narrative space presented. And we had a participation of the whole village, more than 400 people, at the final performance. In particular, there was a very moving moment in which one composition was composed with a local story by a Dutch composer, was performed partially in Dutch with only a guitar on the square of the church. There was the whole village, and we had no amplification, and was perfect silence while this piece was performed with 400 people sitting around, being together in this moment. That was an indicator of a certain type of thing that it's very important. That is, the quality of participation that is required in an artistic site-specific way, it's way higher of what design thinking uses us to do, to be contented with in this type of co-design processes, and is all skills that are already in the art community. So it's skills that can be used for good. I will go now. I will stop a moment. I had to cut a little bit my points because I understand it takes much more than I thought. If there are questions at this point, I stop. This is part one. So The T0 is particularly connected with arts, but also with real societal issues that are perceived by embodiment. So you are there in the real complexity. Okay, so if there are no questions still, I'm going to go to the so-called T1. So I move in time, and in a place that ideally would already have had a Trasformatorio there, we would like to try to set another case that is a little bit more advanced. I piggybacked, let's say, on my experience in the same zone of Sicily, in another place with a project, a H2020 project that is called Ledger, that I was busy with. The place is here. It's called Milazzo. With the previous one, we were here, close to Messina. The province is the same, but it's another place that we could, let's say, adapt enough that it would work as if it was a second intervention in the same area. We can consider it that. About Ledger, the things are that the project was conceived with 16 teams that were competing for 8 places in a second round. It had to be human-centered. We needed to have a part of the, let's say, work, tutoring that was given to these projects was consisted in human-centric values. And the type of industry is the DLT industry, so blockchain, uses of cryptography, etc. The first thing that I did was to set the teams as a learning community. So even if they were competing in theory from the second stage, we set them all in the same learning space. Also because the focus was on open source software, so collaboration was very practical. You had to collaborate also in sharing your code. And I had this need to put them all in the same page, very different type of people, put them all on the same page about what is to be human-centric. And they had a very structured project already in their head. So what we did was bring them in a place, asking them to find as much information as possible and tell them that they had to make a MVP, so a minimum viable product with their technology, not a new one from scratch in a week. And they would be, let's say, judged on their thing. And I found this place that has maximum variability. So it's in Sicily. It's decently remote, and it has a lot of characteristics that are peculiar. And to show you the story that is very well featured in the article that we linked in the beginning, written with Sabrina Sauer, that I thank very much for her help and her input into this. It's referenced a lot, exactly this video that I would like to share with you. It's entertaining, I promise. So I'll share you the video. I don't know exactly how to do it, but I stopped sharing my thing. In the meantime, if you have questions or observation, I respond in the chat. Milazzo is the place in Sicily I know that it has most contradiction in Sicily. So you have the big oil refinery power plant there and a marine reserve here. And from the marine reserve to the power plant, you have all the possible contradiction in viability, in administration, in the way people live. People live pretty good with lots of problems, unemployment and all kind of problems. But still, there is a lot of possibilities for redesigning stuff.
We went to look at the old station, which is a abandoned train station. It was very beautiful with a lot of plants growing around it, and also some other empty buildings nearby. There was like an old chemical factory, and there's a lot of empty houses in the area. And so we started to think about how is it possible to make spaces be used. Would like to do a presentation which focuses on the things we learned about the local community, to present how the things we learned and how it appears to us, rather than focusing so much on a solution that we can really provide. And also we're like to do something around trust, because we think that building trust is maybe something that can solve these problems.
Yesterday we did something very different. We went to a village of Giambilieri. It suffered greatly in a flash flood. 40 people died, and the flood was so sudden that the village did not get a proper warning. Although when we were yesterday there, we realized that there had been about 20 minutes of rain coming in and people starting to realize that something might not be right. But nothing was done. So what we were doing yesterday in the village was to explore that could we build an early warning system for the village, that if something similar will happen in the future, the village can mobilize itself. But it's not only about the early warning, because as they were saying yesterday, that there is a siren, but nobody knows what happens if the siren goes off. So what we are looking to do is that, can we empower the community? Can we identify roles and peoples who can contribute to the safety of the village and create an escalation path, that if the early warning signs go off, is there something that can be done? Can the children run the streets and warn off the elders? Can the rescue workers already be assembled to the safety points and so forth?
We went to Messina, where there is a self-organized beer factory. It was made from 15 workers. They lost their job because Heineken acquired the factory they worked to and the brand name, Bira Messina, and they decided to start a cooperative where they can work together and create the beer based on local products and with a strong sense of community inside them. Everything works in cooperation, and they mentioned when they asked what are the three most important things for a cooperative to have in order to succeed, and the answer was courage, mind and heart. And this idea can open possibilities for a circular economic ecosystem in the area. So we asked a lot about how they operate internally and what are their relationships with the producers.
For me, it's very important that when you try to go into this type of situation, you have situation awareness more valuable than information that you bring with you. So the exercise of extracting information taught us a lot of lessons about expectation, about where we take our information, about, the different type of information you get if you speak the language and if you don't speak the language, if you have context, not context. There were lots of different strategies that have been put in place to arrive here at the last minute without knowing anything. That was more valuable for me than the ability of over-planning an operation.
In south of Italy, from Napoli down, if you meet someone on the street, you're supposed to talk, even if you don't know each other. So don't be shy, really, because people actually expect it from you. If you look at each other, you can start a conversation.
Different from all the other programs I was following, where they followed always only the lean and agile approach, which is the new religion, and they had to, follow this business line procedure, which I always feel like, I tried it many times, and every time I bounced against the wall. So now I know where is also my path, what is my path, and I'm happy I was here. So thank you.
I think what I enjoyed the most was that I had the chance to really have serious conversations with some important people in the field of co-op. And we had the chance to also come up with a completely new project that is actually, well, it is theoretically feasible, you know, it's not just something that we just had to present here and it was just just another step. It's actually something that could be done, and I found this really amazing.
And maybe to ask some open questions to the community instead of putting a solution that we don't feel comfortable coming here for 2 days and saying, here you have your solution for your problems. We would rather prefer to open a conversation with them and see what it can inspire.
Thinking a lot about the ethical implications of being strangers and coming here for a couple of days and trying to figure out what all is here, what kind of needs we can fabricate in our minds, mostly, because we cannot absorb the truth and the actual things that are happening.
If you read the papers of human-centric design from the Commission, is all very nice philosophy, even unrelated one to each other, and there is no practice. So we are creating the practice as we speak. We are trying to extract what it means to do human-centric design with open-source software and create communities around, seed communities, ideas around this type of activity.
If you build a team, it's always the same process. It's the forming, norming, storming, and performing. And then you end up in equilibrium. And when that equilibrium is tested, you end up always in the same process. Forming, norming, storming, and performing again. And every single pivot is that point. And every single pivot like that is a point that stresses your team to the limit. Some will leave, some will split. And it's much easier to leave and split at this stage than before your entire lives are invested and a lot of fortune is invested already, or 3 or 5 years of your life is invested already. Really not coming with a solution, but hearing out what are the conditions, I think that has been one of the most rewarding experiences I've had ever in my career life. Thank you for
What we're trying to do with technology is simply to recreate or help what you already know how to do. The values, creativity, solutions, you have. You can use tools, that's fine, but they shouldn't tell you what to do. So, this is what we have to offer.
So thank you. I think the video is much better than me to give you the idea of what is to embody a situation and where it can bring. But there is a little ulterior step that I would like to assess in the last 5 minutes. Of course, I had much more to say, but I will try to keep it on the most important things. So we developed a methodology that is big, lots of artists brought in a place, the place grows connections, these connections can be then brought forward. It's very important that the people of the place, through the artistic methodology that we use, feel that the technology is growing with them, that in the narrative space, the things they want to say fits with what is their imaginary, what is their, they have this appropriation very early in the stage of regeneration, of the regenerative process. and this technology gets a human-centric value very early and very strongly, also informing the teams that are more technologically appropriate to tackle. Not issues, not problems, but particular flaws in the situation that can be turned in a better way. So I'm not going to spend too much words on how this can scale up, because that's a little bit the problem. The problem, I should not say. It's a little bit one of the things. If you want, I mean, okay, this is a big intervention with artists, etc. There is a smaller version we created for another artistic crazy idea in 2016. We created a table game that has all these elements inside, so you can start using the methodology also playing a table game, not necessarily going into a beautiful place with a nice beach to have your circles in the morning, but still, as you see, everything in that situation has been designed to create this embodiment and to lead in a certain direction the processes that were involved there. So there is a big part of design, of a different type of design. So I will jump to the end of my talk. That is what I envision as a further methodology, further step. Let's say a step 2. So we had the step 0, artistic intervention. Step 1, co-design with the place. Step 2, what it could be. And in this, finally, we have a little bit of top-down thinking, a little bit of bigger scale intervention. Remember those 175 million euros spent in cement, because that's the way the weight of restorative technology engineering at the moment. Not only in Sicily. Sicily, actually, that's a good example. So how to lead the structural funding and inform structural funding in this type of process in time, in which your projects and your goal shifts, your projects are connected with an evolving narrative in the participated space that you created, that is in this boundary between these two lines that have to keep, let's say, complexity and the amount of information in a certain boundary, no? And this, you can think about the horizon of events of your moment. So in a T2, what do you need? What do you need? And what you need is quantitative simulation models informed by open data. That sounds very, very different from the artistic perspective we started first, but I think it's very important. We have that type of possibility, especially with tools like open data. In Trasformatorio, I mean, you have not seen it, but we had open up in Giampilieri the idea and possibility of having a civic LoRa network and having the landscape talk. This is connected with Bruno Latour's idea of the Parliament of Things. I really see it very understandable, very clear as a concept, one of the many, on how you can make your landscape a part of your local history and avoid that kind of blindness that created the landslide and the collector of water. Avoid it letting your landscape talk, and entering in a different dialogue with the things that surrounds you. So I will go very rapidly into this. Of course, I mean, I'm jumping things that you can find then in the paper if you're interested, or you can ask me. We'll need much more time because I'm ready to open up all the tricks that I use to create these situations. So first thing is quantitative simulation models informed by open data that are able to observe the evolution of agents seeded and evolved in the area. There are tools, open source tools to do that. It's a type of analysis that pertain to complexity theory. You can feed them with open data created in the place, economic data, for example, created by complementary currency. And it's a very interesting field of analysis. But it's very hard to have a top-down process that informs enough. It's very expensive and very rare. I don't know any case in which it succeeded. If it's not a bottom-up need, you don't manage to have people using a complementary currency. It has to be co-designed in the territory for that particular user case. But nevertheless, will produce data that can inform through models that are designed together, embodying the situation, that can inform structural funding for the area. And that would be a fantastic way, I think, to open up this innovation space, create sustainable design, create real, I know it's becoming a sort of code word, a bit empty. Forget about the hype, a little bit of resilience and reconstruction in many areas that are vital also for the bigger population, because when they fall down, they fall on you. And you can find examples all over the place, in all over Europe. So I connected to links both to this informed simulation possibilities and the openness of data and the connection with the people that participate to this process. A little bit like in the square of Giampilieri, where we had one of the candidates for mayor had the election in 15 days. He was also there with the performance, and he didn't speak. You know, so it's like open up also for policymakers the possibilities of observing first and speak with facts that are informed by the way the real speak. That is not only through people, desires, traditions, etc., that artistic methodology is very good to show off, but also through, why not, data that is connected to the place and the landscape. So let's have also the Fox talk about the prevention of the fire, for example. I see a lot of possibilities, but the time is over. So I'll open up. Thank you for inviting me and listening to me so far. And yeah, I'll give you back the table.
Thanks, Federico. I mean, well, we should do this every day. and I closed my eyes and I was there. So this is definitely, but no, thank you very much. I think, so it's good that we have this on record. It's fantastic how you aligned everything, right? From this moment of emergence and becoming to the work from the Trasformatorio to the Ledger Bootcamp in a complete, straight, direct line. That to me is really, really amazing and important, and is necessary and vital. So the fact that it can be done, I think you showed that it can be done, is massively important. So that's and then sort of maybe just quickly a few minutes. I think one of the things we also were involved in is DAOs, which is this idea that we can have this awareness in the local area network by taking over the router, basically, idea. But the key, I think, is that for me also, and for lots of people now moving into this idea of identity and attributes and self-sovereign identity and disposable identities, is that for me also it was important to see your first work on the plane that you drew, where you talked about the hats, the different hats. And the way you articulated this came directly from all this performative and philosophical practice, which then which then gives it this kind of tightness. It gives it sort of, I'm not going to say it becomes truth. That's
No,
but
it's consistent.
let's say we are in the vicinity of truth. That's what we feel, sort of like. And this is when I think we can. So truth, I mean, it's not even not a sort of. But we can say, let's define it as an alignment of 15 things. So I mean, if 15 things are aligned, I mean, okay, let's temporarily call it. And that's, I think, this is the basic importance is of what you've been showing. And so maybe if it's possible for you to think back about this notion of identity and the hats and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, identity is a process. No, it's a very complex process. In let's say, if you take the whole art of the 20th century, is being busy with how the identity shows, how identity is brought to life. There is an enormous amount of literature from Kafka, and also the solutions are very different. The solutions, let's say, the point of arrival of the process. Kafka way of intending identity is very different from I don't know, Topor or a surrealist one. So I work into a way of working in which there is no discipline. We are totally non-disciplinary. Everything is allowed and everything has to be expressed in a way that makes sense in the moment. This is something that should be true for a lot of technology as well. The examples you made of DAOs, that was a way to bring to senses in the real space events. And so how to translate a DDoS attack into a noise in my environment, you know, that is equal or similar to the noise of the washing machine breaking down. For me, this has been, you know, it's a type of poetry from artistic perspective. And you have many artists that explore that way. But also a chance of designing for these hybrid spaces that are coming up all over us, in which we are there with the body, we are not there with the body. Part of the network leaks into our space all the time, and we have no visibility of it, etc. It's a sort of augmented type of hybrid space that could be designed. Why not?
Yeah. I think there's two concrete questions in the chat about the situations. So there is a question on if from Christina on, do you think it's possible to realize in Trasformatorio inside a prison or a psychiatric hospital?
I can respond immediately. Of course, but this kind of art for social good, there are many examples that are even more advanced than what we had achieved in our lab. If you take the theater of oppressed as a way of bringing to light and cure societal problems, there are many. For me, it's important as well not to have only the place, the people that inhabits the place and the artist interact, but also the larger world. So you always want to have as much audience as possible, and the audience has to be engaged, because what you want to show is something that is alive in the moment. And you should design also technology and ways to reach identity for this, I believe.
And then the second is by Gail, and Gail is asking, so basically so can we use it also to think about, let's say, the situation, like she's talking about the neighbors. So with it's like sort of, is it also something that can be saying it in an honorable way, produced? Sort of.
It is something that is produced. For example, when you use, I don't know, the little garden, the collective garden in the commons to create this kind of bonding with neighbors, you are actually trying to put together values, let's say, show values that are in a community and grow values in a community that are not necessarily mapped into money. If you try to pay people's time to have them participate in Little Garden, you will not obtain the same thing according to your neighborhood values than having, designing a situation that involves participation. And for me, I've not mentioned it enough in the talk, but it's very present. Permaculture is a big example because it has all these kind of elements in the design, has to deal with, sustainable life on the planet, but is designed and uses technology and science when it's necessary, and it's made to bond, not to exploit. That, in my opinion, is better. Cost less. I mean, when you talk about public money, especially.
I think this is a great note to end on, in a way, because we could continue and we will continue, because I think we should do the conversation again in a few months, and sort of, because it really I think it resonates on so many levels, and it's also been suppressed on so many levels for such a long time. But I'm not even talking, I'm not going into intent or whatever, but it's just seeing sort of, and this I think comes out so brilliantly in the ledger video of the teams, where it's like you lit a match. I mean, you don't have to light the fire, right? Sort of the fire is there. Sort of, it was there in the people, in the situation, in the teams. It was just so difficult for them to see that all of that actually mattered.
The big problem is that the friction, when you act according to these methods, you have to deal with friction.
Yes.
And the friction that comes from the big word is very hard to match with our forces. So, also Ledger is an experiment that exploded and died with the first part of the Ledger projects. I'm not connected to it anymore. Neither I have any idea on how it's going at the moment so far.
But apart from that, I would say that that the fact that it was done is already like was an actualization of a lot of.
For us, yes, it was an incredible occasion to be able to, try for real with a little bit of resources a T1 iteration on the same territory. So for that was invaluable.
Absolutely. And without this, let's say, designing friction or articulating friction, the questions that we are dealing today now, self-sovereign identity, custodianship, people and private keys, will for all the technical work that we'll have, will not become real if we don't address these questions. And I think it also shows how strange and how intensely crazy the last 20, 30 years have been, how they've been able, how these huge corporates have been able to not address any societal questions at all, to outsource industrial and waste sort of like to society, to outsource all the repercussions of all their actions to society and sort of all of that, and have built these huge empires full of resources, capabilities, and money to a certain extent, by really literally flying over those houses, just taking what they needed to make the next app, to make the next installment, to do the next sort of thing. And all of and you're basically taking everyone back to the ground, grounding them, but in a way of full awareness that there's lots of capabilities there. Actually, there's more capabilities there than the other way around. And I think what you've done in that moment was very important, because it was then it became real to more people. And then it will spill over. So that's, I think, definitely what will happen now. Definitely.
Well, I hope so. I hope it was a good talk to bring to the salon. And thank you very much for giving me the occasion to put everything on paper, even.
Absolutely. Well, Federico, thank you a lot. Grazie.
Thank you.
And,
prego.
We talk again soon. And to everyone, thanks for being here. It was great having you. Great stuff in the chat. This is ready to be sort of rewatched, and it's just a start of the conversation, I would say. Grazie, Federico.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Ciao, ciao.
Have a good day. Bye.
Ciao, you too. Ciao.